The Connecticut Supreme Court on Friday vacated the 20-year-to-life sentence of Michael Skakel, who had been found guilty of murdering his 15-year-old neighbor, Martha Moxley, with a golf club on Halloween night in 1975. The case became a national story not because of the murder, but because of Skakel's relation to the Kennedy family. Michael is Ethel Kennedy's nephew. America became transfixed on the 3-week trial in 2002, devouring each detail in print and on cable. After a decade in prison, Michael Skakel was released. Since then, his legal team has been filing appeals on his behalf. On May 4th, the Connecticut Supreme Court overturned Skakel's conviction. Prosecutors have to now decide whether or not to retry the case. Metro Focus co-host Jack Ford spoke to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Michael Skakel's cousin and a former prosecutor. In his book, Framed, Kennedy laid out why the case against Skakel was thin at best and who he believes may be responsible for the Moxley murder. Jack began the conversation by asking Kennedy if he ever had any suspicion that Michael was guilty of the murder.
You asked me about the early days. I never heard about this murder until 1983, which was 8 years after it was committed. I never knew Michael Skakel. I didn't know any of my Skakel cousins. I met Michael Skakel for the first time in 1983, which was 8 years after the murder. My family had almost no interactions with the Skakel family. One of the the foundational myths of this whole orthodoxy that has been created around this murder is that Michael Skakel is a Kennedy cousin.
If you were, back in your prosecutor days, right, and just sort of strip away the names and the relationships, if this file came across your desk with the evidence that was used against Michael Skakel, right, as a former prosecutor, what would you have done with that file?
You couldn't prosecute this case. There was no... Michael Skakel had an airtight alibi. He was 11 miles away with 5 eyewitnesses when the murder was committed. So he had never been a suspect. He was a tiny little kid at that time. Michael Skakel's name never came up on the list of possible suspects. And there were other suspects, or many, many other suspects, but you couldn't place him at the crime at the time, even in the, in the town of Belhaven, at the time, within 2 hours of the commission of the crime.
And yet I'm sure people who are watching this who don't remember all the details of the case, and that's why it's worth their while reading this book, Framed. I'm sure people are watching that and they're saying to themselves, well then, if that's all so, how did 12 jurors find him guilty?
There was no physical evidence, there was no blood, there was no fingerprints, there were no DNA, there were no eyewitnesses, there was many witnesses, as I said, 8 witnesses at the house who said Michael wasn't there, 5 witnesses in the adjoining town who said he was there watching the American premiere of Monty Python at the time the murder was committed. So the prosecutor used a trick which was new, which he pioneered at the time, which was a video, which was very, very deceptive, where he was able to take tape recordings of Michael Skakel, who had confessed to, he was a 14-year-old kid who had masturbated that night, was confessing, saying, "I hope nobody saw me do that." And he played that over gruesome pictures of Martha's body, flashing red blood, and with blood dripping down the screen, saying, "I hope nobody saw me do that." During that part of this very, very powerful video, which the state paid $60,000 for, Mrs. Moxley, who had never seen pictures of her daughter in that state, she had left the courthouse whenever the actual murder was discussed. She was in the audience, and she gasped and fell against the chair on the side. By the time that video was done, Michael was cooked. But that video was used to gloss over the fact that there was no evidence connecting him to the crime.
In your book, you examine all of this. And you don't come up with just a conclusion saying, well, there was not enough evidence to convict him. As you and I know in a courtroom, juries say not guilty. Not guilty can mean a lot of things. It can mean simply, well, we think he did it, but there's not enough evidence. Not guilty can sometimes actually mean innocent, although jurors never say that word. You say Michael Skakel is absolutely innocent of this, and you actually point the finger at 2 other people. Why, if it was so clear to you that they are guilty of this, and that's what you say. Why do you think that they haven't been investigated or hasn't been cleared to anybody yet?
Well, as you know, as a former prosecutor, once you have been convicted by a jury, the system does not want to let you go. So the prosecutors in Connecticut do not want to admit that they made an error. I knew that Michael was innocent. I absolutely knew at that time that Michael was innocent. And I wrote an article for the Atlantic Monthly, which ended up winning a lot of prizes. And that article prompted a letter to me from a classmate of Michael's from the Brunswick School. And the classmate wrote me a fax saying the jury got it wrong and I know what happened. I contacted him. He put me in touch with another classmate, a man named Tony Bryant, who's a cousin of the basketball great Kobe Bryant, who had been at Brunswick School for 2 years with Michael. They had not been friends, but they'd been in the same class. He was a very popular kid, and he was a sports star. And then he had transferred to a public school in New York City. And he had befriended two kids at that school who were very large boys, 6'4", 250 pounds, and very rough, kind of gangsters. One of them was African American, the other was white. He brought those two boys to Greenwich on numerous occasions. They met Martha Moxley. One of them became obsessed with her, and they planned the assault on their way up on the train on Halloween Eve in 1975. They found golf clubs in the Skakel yard, and Tony got frightened and left, and the two boys killed Martha, told them that they were going to do it, and then afterwards confessed that they had done it on numerous occasions. Tony kept the secret. He told his mother. His mother is very, very prominent in the African-American community. She was the first African-American woman to win an Emmy. This family is an extraordinary family, very accomplished. And she said to him, "You're a black boy in a white town, and you brought the two killers to the town. And if you tell anybody about this, they're going to put you in jail. You've got to keep your mouth shut."
And this is what Tony has said.
Yeah. So Tony kept his mouth shut for 27 years, but he got increasingly agitated when he didn't think Michael would ever be convicted. And when Michael was convicted, he started talking about this. And when I reached him on his phone in Miami, he picked up the phone. I said, "I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm Michael Skakel's cousin. I want to talk to you about the Martha Moxley murder." And he said to me, "I've been waiting for this phone call for 27 years. He told me what happened. He knew the boys only by their first names, Adolph and Burr. I was able to obtain a yearbook from the Charles Evan Hughes High School here in New York City and find out their real names. I tracked one of them to Bridgeport, Connecticut, the other to Portland, Oregon, and I talked to them. Both of them admitted knowing Tony Bryant. They both admitted being in Greenwich on numerous occasions. They admitted staying the night at the house of the little boy, an 11-year-old boy called Jeffrey Byrne, and his house is the house that Tony Bryant said they stayed in the night to clean off after the murder. Jeffrey Byrne never recovered from that night and later died mysteriously. They admitted to knowing many of the neighbors, to knowing having seen the Skakels. They described in detail the inside of Jeffrey Byrne's house.
But denied any role in the murder.
They denied, and initially in my phone calls, they denied having been in Greenwich on the night of the murder. But they said after the murder, we stopped visiting Greenwich.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned in the beginning, you didn't even know Michael Skakel until 1983. So it wasn't, again, the way some members in the media where they trumpeted this as a Kennedy cousin, and it created images of all the Kennedys romping on the beach up in Hyannisport, and it had been all close together. You didn't even know until 1983.
The people that generally are thought of as Kennedy cousins, the 29 grandchildren of Joseph and Rose Kennedy, and none of those grandchildren had ever met a Skakel, any member of that generation of Skakels prior
here's
to
my question to you.
1983.
So it wasn't as if he was somebody that you were close to all your life.
No.
Why then have you taken such a personal interest? Why have you made this a personal crusade to exonerate Michael Skakel?
Well, I became friends with Michael in 1980, beginning in 1983. He was sober at that time, and he had just gotten sober, and I got sober at the end of that year. We ended up going to a lot of 12-step meetings together, and then in the context of the 12-step program, where it's all about honesty and sharing your most intimate thoughts and secrets. I knew the whole story of the murder. I knew the masturbation story and all of the things that were later. But I knew those from 1983. Things that later on the police, the prosecutors, and Mark Furman, all these people said these were recent fabrications. That he made up to cover the possibility that his DNA would be found on Martha Moxley's body. But I knew that wasn't true, and I knew what the real truth was. And, at that point, I saw this guy innocently convicted, and you would have done the same thing. It's like if you see a mugging on the street, do you put your head down and just keep walking and say, I don't want to get involved with this because there may be a cost to it, or do you go back and, and get involved? And so I didn't feel like I had any choice. And
right
believe me,
right.
It's not something I wanted to do because it's been a bad career move for me.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's a distraction. First of all, writing the book took time. Writing the article that I did, took, it was a couple of months' work. And it takes me away from the stuff that I want to be doing, which is, litigating against polluters. And then people start to, people tend to fall into the orthodoxy if they're told again and again that a Kennedy cousin, murdered somebody in Greenwich, and all the press is saying it. And literally, there were 402 reporters who were covering this. You were one of the few people who refused to call him a Kennedy cousin, but everybody else did. In fact, I'd say you were the only one. The only reporter to look beyond that kind of that flimsy orthodoxy was Leslie Stahl, who actually looked at it in a documentary for 48 hours. She looked and said, "This doesn't make any sense. He couldn't have killed her. He was 11 miles away with 5 eyewitnesses. All the police reports, all the testimony at that time says the same thing." Oh, but nobody else looked at that. Everybody else just, they were attracted to this feeding frenzy. It was like a bear baiting, national media bear baiting expedition. It was a media lynching.
You and I could sit and talk for hours about this. We appreciate you spending some time talking with us.
Thanks.